U-PASS has a mission to assist all pilots in safety and standards. The following video is to help understand how to apply for a Civil FAA certificate of waiver or authorization for drones in controlled airspace, or simply answers the most asked question, how do I fly near an airport? Operating a drone in controlled airspace requires more than just a pilot's skill. If the intent is to operate in controlled airspace, after receiving an approved 44807 exemption, the FAA mandates that drone pilots obtain a certificate of waiver or authorization, commonly known as COA, when flying in controlled airspace. A COA creates a baseline of safety for the FAA to mitigate risks for drone operations. So let's get started. There are two kinds of COAs, civil and public. However, a public COA only applies to entities with a governmental purpose. So let's set that aside and focus on civil COAs. Let's walk through the steps to apply for this essential authorization. First, confirm if the operation is within controlled airspace. Controlled airspace includes areas near airports and is typically classified as Class B, C, D, or Surface Class E airspace. Use tools like the FAA's B4U Fly app or other airspace mapping services to verify your location. A blanket COA is issued along with an approved 44807 exemption, which only allows operations in Class G at below 400 feet AGL. However, the 44807 exemption additionally limits operations to 200 feet AGL for over 55-pound aircraft. For operations not covered under the blanket Class G COA, pilots must apply for a separate civil COA with the COA Online Application Process System, online portal, or the CAPS. If you're not sure where the CAPS portal is found, take note on the screen and head over to the CAPS portal. This is where an application will need to be submitted. If you don't already have an account, create one. It's free and somewhat straightforward. Complete number 1, CAPS access form and submit to the email provided. It's going to ask for name, contact information, operating certificate number, civil or public, and the reason for the request. Some examples are provided. Save it and submit it to the email provided and expect a couple of days to get approval. After receiving approval for CAPS, FAA Form 7711-1 will need to be filled out. For Civil COA under Part 91, it's for UASs over 55 pounds that cannot comply with the 107, which is where most ag pilots will fall. Gather the following information so the process will go quickly. The application will require the following: applicant's information, and just a hint, do not use a generic email, it could delay answers. Operational description, UAS platform. Flight operations area. This will include the latitude and longitude of the area of operations along with a Google Earth type map with visible boundaries so that the FAA can determine exactly where you will be flying. A Lance map depicting altitudes is also helpful to the FAA. Depending on the airport, sometimes a letter of agreement is also required. Flight crew qualifications. A copy of your exemption. A copy of your registrations, which should match the same information as the exemption. If you need help submitting your COA, go to U-PASS and send us a note and we can reach back out to assist. Once logged in, select Request a Waiver Authorization and follow the prompts to fill out your application. Be thorough and provide accurate details to avoid delays. The FAA may request additional information, so be prepared to respond promptly. After submission, the FAA will review your application, and if they are satisfied that the applicant has adequately addressed the risks for air and ground, the COA will be issued. Processing times can vary, so apply well in advance of your planned operation. You'll receive an email notification once your COA is approved or if further action is needed. Once approved, carefully review the terms of the COA, meaning the 20 standards and special provisions listed in the blanket COA and the 40+ conditions and limitations listed in the exemption. It may include specific altitude limits, operational conditions, communication requirements, or other conditions. Make sure to comply fully with these to ensure safe and legal operations. The standard blanket COA granted with the exemption includes Class G airspace at or below 400 feet above ground level in national airspace systems, no closer than 5 nautical miles from an airport having an operational tower, no closer than 3 nautical miles from an airport having a published instrument flying procedure but not having an operational control tower, no closer than 2 nautical miles from an airport, not having a published instrument flight procedure or operational tower, and no closer than 2 nautical miles of a heliport or hospital. These are some of the restrictions that can be relieved by a jurisdictional civil COA. With a COA in hand and filing no TAMs, pilots are now authorized to fly in controlled airspace. Remember, safety is always the priority. Follow all FAA guidelines, maintain visual line of sight, and be prepared to land immediately if air traffic control requests it or a manned aircraft is in the vicinity. A note here, just contacting the ATC or airport management to get approval is not good enough. Pilots must have a jurisdictional COA with the appropriate airspace approval. If the desired operations are not within the previous mentioned limitations, the blanket COA issued with the exemption, a pilot must go back to the CAPS and apply for a separate jurisdictional COA. So clearly understand the blanket COA. By following these steps to operate in controlled airspace, you are contributing to the safe integration of drones into the FAA national airspace. Stay informed, stay safe, and enjoy your flight.